to a presentation from the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for Freedom, Family, and Faith. My name is Ann DeSantis. It's great to be here with you, and I'm excited for you to be here with us on this presentation as we have an awesome speaker. Her name is Emily Whiting. She's coming to us from Doylestown, Ohio. She is a Catholic speaker and writer. So Emily, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Anne. I'm honored and just so excited for our time together.
I am too. So during this half-hour show, and it's also on podcast, I know that you'll be sharing with us your life, faith, and mission. And I would like to invite our listeners and our viewers also to go to your website and learn about your work at Emily K. Whiting. Now, the K is just the letter K, and Whiting, Whiting. So Emily K. Whiting. So Emily, please tell us about you and your family and your faith.
Yes, thank you so much, Anne. And thank you to the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for this opportunity. It's an honor to be here with your audience. So a little bit about me. So I grew up in the Catholic Church, and so did my husband. You can see our lovely family
That's right.
back here. And it wasn't really until college that I grew a deeply personal relationship with Jesus, but it really wasn't even until adulthood that I started to really own that Catholic faith as my own, to really find myself as part of the church. And so a little bit about kind of what led me to the ministry and our family and where we are today is going into college. You know, I kind of knew the teachings of the church and the right from wrongs, but I didn't understand the why. And it was all up here and none in my heart, you know. And so as I went through college, I actually met my husband now, and we began dating, and it quickly fell apart. We didn't last very long, and we came to realize it was because though we both grew up Catholic, we had really shut our faith out of our relationship because we didn't realize that He is the foundation and the root of a strong relationship, and that He created relationships to ultimately lead us to Him. We didn't know all that at the time. So it did not work out, and God ultimately, in His incredible timing, led us back together 2 years later after we learned a lot of those things the hard way. And we did get married, and we ultimately have 2 beautiful children, 3 actually, but 2 with us today. One is up in heaven watching over us all. And as we kind of started out our marriage, I got really into my career and was loving it, but I kept going home with kind of those Holy Spirit taps on the shoulder, if you know what I mean, saying, yes, saying, Emily, there's something more that you can be doing with your professional training for my church. And I remember just wondering, you know, what could that be? So my training is actually in agriculture communications, which is a marketing and journalism, public speaking and writing kind of training. And so I really started praying into that of, okay, God, I'll do whatever you want me to do, but what do you want me to do? And over the course of about a year or 2, I really felt Him saying, I want you to speak and write for my church. I want you to see my people, and I want you to love my people. And so I started praying over that. Okay, see my people, love my people. What do I do with that, God? You know, what do I speak about, and what do I write about? And He ultimately led me to understanding He wanted me to share my deepest reality of learning His heart and being led to His heart through my journey with my husband, and how we learned His design for relationship through each other the hard way. And so that's what I started out speaking and writing about, was truly God's design for intimacy, His design for relationships, His design, why we have desires, all of those things. And then a couple years into the ministry, we were expecting our first child, and we were overjoyed. And I was 20 weeks pregnant at the time, which is halfway through a pregnancy. And so we went in for what they call the anatomy ultrasound. And we were so excited because this is when they tell you if you're having a boy or girl, if you so choose to find out. And, you know, there's these little apps these days that tell you the size of your baby every week in gestation. And this week, our baby was the size of a sweet potato. So we were so excited to go in. Yes, we were so excited to go in and meet our little sweet potato and find out boy or girl. And So we go into the ultrasound room and they did their tests and we discovered she was a little girl. And of course we were overjoyed, but we also went from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in a matter of about 20 minutes because the doctor came in and read the results of the ultrasound to us and shared that our daughter had malformations from head to toe. And
Wow.
at the time, they could already tell her brain was missing a large part. Her heart wasn't functioning correctly. Her kidneys were enlarged. She had a mass filling the right portion of her abdomen, and they didn't know what it was. She was missing part of her lip, and they couldn't tell in the ultrasound, but they said that meant she was likely also missing the roof of her mouth, called a cleft lip and palate. And so as you can imagine, it was the most devastating day. We truly felt like we were attending our daughter's funeral right after having realized that we were having a daughter. And the doctor at the time shared, we don't know if she will survive. And if she does survive, what would her quality of life be? So as you can imagine, there were lots of questions. And now her story has become a large part of my ministry as well. Ultimately, all of my speaking and writing is rooted in truths of theology of the body, which is Pope John Paul II's teachings about our bodies and how they make visible what is invisible, the invisible love of God.
That's right. Praise God for your work. And thanks so much for sharing this, because I can't imagine that it must have been so hard to hear what you were hearing. But I know that there's a very good ending to the story as it comes along.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this launched us with our daughter into quite a new journey that no one could have predicted or expected. And I'll give you kind of the short story of Charlotte, and we ultimately named her Charlotte. And what led me to infusing what we've learned through her into the ministry as well. Ultimately, my hope in sharing her story is to help other parents as they're walking through the crisis of learning about the diagnosis of their child, and then navigating the waters of now having a child with a diagnosis of any kind, truly, helping them know that they're not alone, and arm them with some practical tips. So fast forward from that first ultrasound, that fateful ultrasound at 20 weeks, we ended up being in and out of the hospital on a weekly basis throughout the pregnancy. And I remember every morning just waking up and just holding on and holding my breath until I felt that first kick to know that she's still alive, she's still with us, I still have the blessing of this life today. And every night, it was laying down and just thanking God for one more day with her, because this journey just taught us the preciousness of life and the frailty of life, the gift of life. And so we were in and out of the hospital, preparing for, if she survived until birth, then what would birth look like? And if she made it that far, then what do we do from there to help her? And we got to 37 weeks, and at which point the doctors decided she was healthier or had a higher chance of survival if she was outside of the womb than in. And so they induced labor. And out came this screaming, beautiful baby, Charlotte, 5 pounds, 11 ounces. And I remember just, the reality that we didn't know if she would live a minute, a day, a full life. And so I was just so overjoyed that I got to hold her for a few seconds before they whisked her off to the NICU. It was the most precious few seconds that I've had. And then we didn't see her for quite a while because she was in and out of tests, and the doctors, they were amazing. God worked so many miracles through the hands of these doctors and nurses. They were, performing all these tests to try to figure out, okay, of all the systems affected by these malformations, which ones do we attack first to try to heal and kind of work down the line? So long story short, she was in the NICU for 72 days. She's 2.5 now. And so she's had 11 surgeries. She's been under anesthesia I don't know, I lost track, 15 or 16 times because of testing and other things. But to see her today, the only indication, if you didn't know her story, that she may have a little bit of a history from a medical standpoint is she has a couple of scars from the repair of her lip, and she has a hearing aid.
Oh, how the Lord works. Praise God. And you said yes to life, because let's face it, there are some people in our world who don't have the same mentality that you have or I have, or some of our viewers here, that would have said no to that life. So I just am so grateful for your yes, and for your beautiful family. So thank you so much so far for sharing this story with us. So kind of take us on that continued journey with her.
Yeah, so we ended up, gosh, where to begin? So many things to share. So we have learned many things through Charlotte. And first off, we've just learned the preciousness of life, like I said earlier, and the gift of life. I remember so the day after our 20-week ultrasound, we were able to get in with a fetal care specialist who specializes in high-risk pregnancies and babies who are in utero with medical conditions. And I remember sitting down with him, and I asked him all these questions, like, for instance, when do you think she'll pass away? Should we name her, even though we might have to bury her? Will we get her body? All of these things that were not focused on her life, but focused on the loss. And I remember he patiently answered all those questions, and then he kind of sat back and thought for a minute, and he said, now, Emily and Daniel, I've answered your questions about her death, but now I want us to focus on her life, because the baby I see on this ultrasound is very much alive. Yes, she has all these medical conditions, but she's very much alive today, so let's focus on her life. And that was just a game changer, because it refocused my energy, and it caused me to just focus on the gift of who she is and how we get to have her today. And, we'll deal with tomorrow.
That's
And
right.
so what a beautiful, beautiful mindset that he helped refocus us on.
Praise God. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So as a result of, being in and out of the hospital over the last 2.5 years, really three and a half years, if you include the pregnancy, we've learned a thing or two about navigating the medical system. And I would just love to share that if there's any listeners who have a child with any kind of medical diagnosis, just some very practical things to help you in your journey.
Please do. Please do. That would be wonderful. Now, like I said, this is a half-hour show, but we're going to come back for part 2, where I know that you have a special presentation, just to let our viewers know. It's going to be called Raising Daughters of Dignity and Sons of Honor, How to Raise Kids in a Sex-Crazed World. So that's going to be our part 2. But this one's focused on Charlotte and focused on her journey and your journey of faith. So please do continue.
Thank you, Anne. Well, first off, if there's any parents listening, today who have a child with any kind of medical diagnosis, maybe you just learned of it, maybe it's something that you've been dealing with for a long time, I just want to offer that, offer that I'm there with you, and I'm sorry that you're having to walk this journey. No parent sets out to be a parent in hopes that your child has struggles with medical challenges. And it can be a very lonely, scary, challenging endeavor. And so I just want to offer that you're not alone in that. And myself and many others are there with you in that journey. So one of the first things we learned in this journey was that there's an array of emotions that we as parents experience. And of course the children too. I guess in one way we were blessed that our child was so little that we didn't have to navigate her emotions as well as ours, at the beginning. I'm sure we'll get there because her journey's not over. We will have more surgeries, many, many more surgeries before she's an adult. So we'll get there. But for now, we've only had to navigate our own emotions, at least up at the beginning. But one thing I want to just speak into for parents who are navigating this is that it is okay and very normal to mourn the loss of the healthy child you envisioned. It can feel very selfish. I think it's natural that we all mourn it, but then we can very often tend to kind of want to squash those emotions because it feels selfish that we would mourn the loss of the healthy child we dreamed of. But it's very normal, it's very natural, and it doesn't mean you love your child any less. It actually means you love them immensely because you had hopes for them to be healthy, and it's turned out to be otherwise. So, I guess practical tip number one is you're going to have a wide array of emotions. One of them might be a mourning of the loss of that healthy child, and that is normal, and it's okay to let yourself grieve that. Another thing that's, yes, absolutely. I needed that spoken to me several times up at the beginning and throughout as well. But tip number two, I know I questioned my ability to raise a child with medical needs, and I imagine many parents do when they are first receiving that diagnosis from the doctor. It's very common for us to think, who am I to raise a child with these needs? Who am I? In my instance, how am I going to know how to navigate the medical system? I don't even know how to raise a child, let alone, be in and out of the OR, manage prescriptions. All of these things. And, but you can do it. And God chose you. He handpicked you for this beautiful, beautiful blessing of this child that he's given you. And you can do it. And I'm going to cry telling you that because it's so real.
That's right.
And one of the biggest moments for me at the very beginning, I was probably a couple weeks into knowing about Charlotte's diagnoses, where I actually just kind of sat there in prayer and I was just sobbing and just kept questioning over and over, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And I just got this overwhelming peace that told me, you're going to do it one moment at a time. Not one day, not 1 week, not 1 hour, one moment. Yes. And you're going to do it with me, with Christ. And so I speak that to you as well. If you are listening as a parent with a medical child or child that has medical needs, you can do this. God chose you to do this because he knows that you and only you can be the best parent for your child. And he also knows that you can do this one moment at a time. And this is going to be probably the biggest journey in teaching you complete dependence on him. And it's a beautiful journey if you let him carry you, because he will, one moment at a time.
Praise the Lord. Yeah, and I'm sure that helps many people who are watching, because their child might not have the exact, diagnosis that Charlotte has, but there's all kinds of problems, medical problems, other types of even problems that are on the spectrum, psychological or emotional health. So it's just so good to talk to you, because I know you're giving some advice that helps families.
And even if you don't have a child with medical needs, being a parent in general is overwhelming and scary, because we are charged with this responsibility, this beautiful gift and responsibility to raise children to ultimately, our goal is to lead them to Christ, lead them to heaven. And that is an overwhelming charge, even if your child is 100% healthy. And so, we all will question our abilities as parents. And so just resting and knowing that God handpicked us to be the parent to our child, and that he will be with us each and every moment. And not only him, but also the communion of saints. And that's become so evident to me over the last couple of years, that we have just this incredible network in the church, the body of Christ, who is there for us for all of the most small needs and details of our day. And so that's why one moment at a time, that's all God asks of us.
Thank you.
And so that leads me to tip number 3. And that is, oftentimes we struggle, especially if our child has kind of larger diagnoses that require being in and out of the hospital. We often have family and friends who want to know what's going on, right? And it's hard to know, what do I share, what don't I share, what's personal, what's private, what's public, and how do I share it with them when I'm simply trying to survive with keeping my child healthy. And so we chose one avenue, and it actually kind of just naturally happened, where we created a website on caringbridge.com, and I could just go on there and provide a quick update, and anyone who wanted to follow Charlotte's story could get the link and follow along. And that has evolved into, I'm not even sure how many people follow her story at this point. I know it's in the thousands. It started out just our intimate family, and then her story just grew because God's work was incredible, and we never promoted the link, we never shared it, it just grew. But the point is, if you want to find ways to keep your family and friends involved and informed, there's lots of different ways you can do that now without it being a huge burden for you. So you could do a blog, you could do Facebook, Instagram, you could do Caring Bridge, or you could even assign someone in your family who's going to be the communication lead. And, you can say, okay, Aunt Susie, you're going to be the one who I'm just going to tell you what's going on in John's world at the hospital, and you make the post so the whole family knows. That way it's not on you. Clearly I'm a communicator, so I loved that part because it was kind of like a little bit of an outlet for me, but I know for a lot of people that's not going to be the case. So finding someone who can be kind of that communication lead can be a real help when you're just in the throes of trying to survive.
I was just thinking as well, Emily, that not only does that advice help parents, but what you were mentioning about Caring Bridge, that will also help those who have older parents or other sick family members or people who need help. So it's just the way that you described that about assigning someone to help. I think it's very good advice for all of us.
Absolutely. Yes, and that leads me to a great point that, in terms of support systems are so critical when we have children with medical needs. And it can be one person or it can be an army of people. But if we can find that one person or that group or whomever we're going to turn to for support, it's so critical. And it's, I will say, incredibly humbling to accept help. Right? It's one of those things that we oftentimes are used to being the ones who give and help others. And so when we are in the receiving seat, it's humbling and it's hard. But now is not the time to be the hero. Now is the time to accept help. And truly, other people are going to see your struggle and their hearts hurt for you and they want to help you. And so the more we can let them help, it will help them heal and be a part of the journey with you, and it will help you. So some very basic things, no matter what your challenge is, maybe if somebody could just mow your yard, that would be helpful. Or maybe if somebody could pick up groceries. I know COVID makes things really challenging, but if somebody could bring the mail in or take your dog to their house for a week while you recover from whatever's going on. Don't be afraid to ask people for help. And also when people offer to help, because they often say, if you need anything, let me know. People stopped saying that if they weren't serious to me, because I always would give them something. I'd say, well, actually, I could use some children's Tylenol. Would you mind grabbing some? Or whatever. But the point is, don't be afraid to ask for help because people want to help. And even if it's just somebody who comes over and sanitizes your house before you come home from the hospital. Things like that. People want to help, and it can be healing for everyone if we allow others to help us.
Excellent advice. Thank you. So far this has been awesome, and I'm so grateful to you. We have about 5 minutes till the end of this program or so. So please do continue.
Thank you. Another big tip that I guess I want to make sure I include before we are concluded is just some thoughts on how faith can play a role in all this. Again, it's very easy to, well, it's not very easy. It's very natural to experience a roller coaster of emotions. It's natural to experience doubt in our faith. It's natural to want to almost pull away from God. And I just invite you to remember that God is with us, even in the hardship, especially in the hardship. And it doesn't require a huge faith to be able to maintain a strong faith through hardship. A mustard seed is all you need to cling to. I remember in the hardest days in the NICU, there was one day in particular that we really weren't sure if Charlotte was going to make it. We thought she had just had a seizure. She was out of her third surgery that had lasted an entire day. She had, lines and leads attached to every part of her little 5-pound, 11-ounce body. And we just were devastated. And I just remember going to the waiting room and I just kept praying over and over, oh God, oh God, oh God. That was it. That was the whole prayer.
That is a prayer.
That is a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all the energy I had left. I had no words. I had no nothing. I couldn't be mad. I couldn't be sad. I just was, and I just kept praying, oh God. And that was enough to get me through that moment. And that's how God works. He's so faithful and so beautiful that he is there in that moment with you, especially when you can be raw and real and honest with him. He can handle our honest emotions. He can handle our challenges. And if we can just come to him with open arms and let him carry us, he will carry us.
Amen. Wow, that was beautiful. I know we have probably so much more to talk about. We will have to schedule like a third show. I think we will have to, because you do have a lot more to share even than what we're sharing. But this is a great introduction. I do want to mention to our listeners and our viewers that you are available for speaking engagements. And I know that right now we're dealing with this pandemic crisis in our country right now. Maybe there's not a lot of traveling and visiting churches and doing in-person things, but I know you are available to do those online presentations. So I just want to remind people to get in touch with you again at your website, which is emilykWhiting.com. So make sure that you get in touch. Is there any other contact information that you want to give people?
You can reach me at my website. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. Both are Emily K. Whiting. And I would love to connect with you, whether it's for a speaking need, a writing need, or simply just to connect and to discuss your faith journey. So feel free to reach out anytime. All my contact information is on my website.
Yes, and I will tell our friends of the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation that Emily is a very authentic, kind woman who really means exactly what she just said, that she is available to be contacted and talk to you about whatever it is that you're going through, especially those who have children that have special needs of some sort or medical issues. So again, I thank you. I also would like to invite people to connect with us, people who don't know much about the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation. You can go to our website at nonnatus.org and connect with us on our contact page there. Also, I'll just give you my email address. It's director.srnf, and that stands for the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation, at gmail.com. So director.srnf@gmail.com. And our phone number is 215-870-9913. My name is Ann DeSantis, and I am the director. I'm located here in the greater Philadelphia area. So I hope to hear from you as well, because we help families in crisis. And our tagline is we offer spiritual accompaniment for families in crisis. So Emily, I thank you so much for joining us here on this show, both of a program and podcast, and we look forward to that next one. Did you have any final thoughts for those who are with us?
My final thoughts are just that if you are a parent with a child with medical needs, just know that you are not alone, that you are surrounded by other parents like myself who have been, are going through it, but you're also surrounded by God's love, as well as the communion of saints by Mother Mary. They're carrying you, and you are not alone. And also, I wanted to thank you and the St. Raymond Nonnatus Foundation for what you do. It's incredible, and I am just so grateful for your work.
And we're grateful for you too. So we look forward to that next episode. Again, I'll just tell them what it is. It's Raising Daughters of Dignity and Sons of Honor. So make sure you keep an eye on our website for that at nonnatus.org. So until next time, for Emily Whiting and myself, have a great day.